And then mathematics instruction. He wanted to know what the key components were. He's not a big fan of CERN, so he wants to know what things are we doing specifically in our components of math. The word he used was, it seemed a bit chaotic. And then, so he talked about some grade levels that are problematic. So fifth grade, 6th grade, and 8th grade in terms of scores. We haven't seen growth in those areas. So what I did was I just put back in the slide just so we can see. This is the current.
No, I mean the current 5th grade, the current 6th grade, the current 8th grade he has concerns on.
Yes, because he's concerned if they're going to make growth in those grade levels. Because if you look at 5th grade last year, they had a little bit of growth, but the year before, 3 years before, they had basically no growth. 6th grade, the same thing. 1 year they went up, and then they were back down to none. 7th and 8th grade were still at 0.
Problem also is the teams aren't consistent, so it's not like same 5th grade, same, you know what I mean?
So we have to think about that. So I mean, either, well, we're gonna have to tighten it up. But you're right, we're gonna have to give reasons as to why we're seeing
like the current
those
6th grade, those all those teachers weren't in 6th grade last year.
And then 7th and 8th grade, I know we're showing zeros here in terms of proficiency, but we also competed with Regents for the other 2 years as well. So we had actually 33% passed the Regents last school year, but then as a result, we didn't get scores for the 8th grade test.
Do they do one or the other? Do they have to do both?
They have a choice. I mean, because you can opt out, so they really don't have to do that. So,
but I mean, if they do Regents, do they have to do state?
They don't have to do either one. Okay. Because they can opt out. So what the parents were doing was, my child wants to take the Regents, but they don't want to sit for the 8th grade, so they will opt them out. I mean, best case scenario, they would take both.
I think the other thing to note on that is our 7th and 8th grade are always so new because we have the high turnover. It's kind of another reason.
Yeah, I would wonder, just speaking to that, Monique, just worth mentioning when talking about the model, that the percentage of the kids within 7th and 8th grade, what percentage of them are actually a reflection of having been through the model from previous years. Might be important to have to segregate those kids numbers and then the other kids numbers. So I'm just going to think about that.
No, we can definitely do that, because we have to think about, so now what we could do is do share outs from each one of those different committees, and or we can start talking about the data sets that we want to include that we view are important in terms of the state visit. So that's open. What would you all like to, how would you like to spend our time? So do you want to do share outs? A quick share out from each one, and then we can start brainstorming the data and the things that we need to ensure are in place. You guys are being way too easy. You're like, yeah, finish up. All right, so instructional model team, you all want to share from that?
So grades 3 through 8 have given the CFAs in ELA and math, and then grade level teams graded them, and we're starting to look at that data both within the grade and then across the grade levels to see what we notice and wonder about the data and what we need to hone in on. So that'll be an important piece of data to share with him when he comes.
And actually, I think something else we might want to put in there is that we are starting our vertical math meetings up again. The first one is going to be this Wednesday. So I think that's going to be really important when we talk about our math instruction and things we're doing.
Can you repeat that one more time?
We're starting our math team lead meetings, and they're going to be vertically aligned, K through 8th grade. They're going to meet on Wednesday. And the first meeting, we're going to start looking at math vocabulary and common vocabulary through grade K through 3rd grade for one section. And then grades 3 through 8th grade are going to look at state exams and start to align the test questions with the different standards. Anything else for instructional? I think the other thing we're going to have to obviously put in that is that we're going to have to flush out what the model needs to look like at each grade level and go back and revisit if it's being done with fidelity in every space. Restorative practices.
hold on.
Well, I'll go then. I'll do the community engagement one, okay?
Yeah, go, if you want to jump on that one, yep.
So community engagement, we met about, I don't know, like a week and a half ago. In our last meeting, we decided to really take advantage of the Thanksgiving community dinner. So what we're gonna do on the same night as the dinner is open up part of our school to have some additional activities. So there'll be a barber there, Links for Kids will be there to do some play. There'll be a storyteller, there'll be space to do an art project. And that'll happen in conjunction. So we're hoping the families enjoy dinner, get their mittens and hats, and then come on up the ramp and enjoy some activities as well.
One thought is, I was just sending out emails to the folks at School 10 who had their CET meeting last week. Daisy Algren, I think, has worked with you to get the NSC office involved.
Yes.
Yeah. That might be a good group to come in so that they can hand out information about code enforcement and, you know, ways that they could be helpful to parents if they're having problems with a landlord or whatever.
We can definitely do that. I'll send that to Alicia Bell because I know they have a lot of agencies coming in. I just have to double check because Flynn is also bringing in agencies as well to the community dinner.
Oh,
But I
okay.
can definitely follow up on that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So for restorative committee, currently what we have going on for restorative is we got some exciting things. We're going to have a poverty simulator experience for staff on our half day, which is December 6th, I believe, that Friday, where all staff will participate and experience what it's like to live in poverty and have to make critical decisions in your everyday life and how those decisions affect you, just to give yourself a different lens and an experience. And then that hopefully the goal is for, as our staff begins to participate, that they start to have a deeper understanding of some of the implicit biases they may share and how to improve communication with parents and not make assumptions when communicating. So just taking the whole picture, taking the whole feeling and the experience and now applying it to practice when we're communicating, so we become better communicators with our community members. So that's something exciting coming up. We also have a professional development that's been happening with the restorative team that's been led by
Kevin Baldwin.
Kevin Baldwin, which has been pretty good, well attended as well. We also have a subcommittee team that's going to meet with Kevin also at for PLC.
Oh, the dinner thing?
Yeah. You want to explain that a little bit more, Rebecca, about the tenor piece?
I don't know much about it. I just know I made a slideshow presentation for them last year.
Mm.
I can talk about it.
Okay.
It's like the Rock Restorative support team for the schools in the district that are making restorative practices a focus point. They host a monthly dinner at one of the schools, and during the dinner it's like an opportunity for staff members from each school to kind of learn about what other schools are doing, but also participate in some group learning and then share out and learn about, basically just like build a network or a support network of people who are interested in restorative practices. So we have 4 staff who are attending that as well.
Mm-hmm. And then we have some professional development that we're looking to create. We have a book that was given from our instructional team to roll out to all staff, some professional development. The book is escaping me, Ms. Lee. Can you say that again?
Discipline with dignity.
Discipline with dignity, sorry. Yep, discipline with dignity, which will be rolled out through all staff. And we're just looking at how we're going to roll that out and when we're going to offer that professional development. So that piece is being also worked on. So that's and then I guess, Matt, you could talk a little bit about some of the proactive stuff we have going on in terms of how we're tracking some of the restorative work in the building. So some of the proactive stuff besides just help zone in circles that are going on, but like when teachers in the classroom have restorative conferences or have circles, how they can track those on a form and then input it through an electronic format, to a Google format monthly, and weekly so that we can see how we're proactively having these conversations and how this work is working. And Matt had created a sheet, a Google sheet that can be used. It's a quick, it's like a quick survey that takes all the information and what you may have used for that week. And we just got to run that by school-based planning or instructional team. I think we weren't sure which team we wanted. I want to say it might have to go through ILT, or excuse me, school.
What is it, the
School-based.
The form in which you're tracking?
Yeah, like that form, and making, just running it through them before you roll it out and communicate it to the rest of the teachers. So we have the form created, we just got to run it by the team and see. School-based team, and then from there, share it at grade level meetings to then be run out. So we've got some exciting things going on overall, and I think we're going in a good direction, a positive direction with restorative practices. It seems a lot of buy-in from staff with that.
Another thing we talked about creating lockers as empty lockers as locations where students could anonymously or discreetly request support or circles. And so what we've done is create a pilot of that in the 5th and 6th grade classrooms. So 5th and 6th grade each have a box called the student support box where students can fill out a form if they're having an issue and they need an adult support. And so then I check it and the teachers check it, and then we talk with the students and figure out what the next best step is.
Is it being utilized? Sorry.
You're fine. Yeah, that was my question.
We rolled it out in last week, and 5th grade is using it, and 6th grade, I introduced it on Thursday and it hasn't been used yet.
And then from, I know Mr. Simmons worked on last Friday, establishing what lockers and what areas. So we're thinking of a locker in the middle cluster area and also a locker in this cluster over here for students to just drop those things in those lockers. So just decorating that locker to be like a peace locker.
We have
And that-
spray paint if you need it.
Yeah. And that hasn't been rolled out yet.
That's a
That's
good.
he's working on. So again, wait for students to advocate.
Another kind of paint would adhere to the locker already.
We have plenty of spray paint.
All right, any other input from any of those or any questions around those report outs, share outs? All right, so the next thing I would like to do is if we can just go back in the PowerPoint and just talk about ways that we can collect data for each one of the items that have to be addressed for the upcoming state visit. So if we can start with chronic absenteeism, we can just brainstorm and just popcorn out any ideas of things that you think we should include in our data.
I wonder around homelessness, busing, because I know we have quite a few kids in our class that are in that situation where they've moved because of a situation and couldn't get busing and then couldn't get to school because of that. I was looking at one of our kids that's in the red, and I know it was because she moved across town and it took her some time to get the bus.
I think that's going on with the middle schooler too, John. Margaret sent me an email about the same thing.
Is there any way Betsy can provide this? Because we just had a meeting with her last week or the week before, in which she said they collected this data around
The homelessness?
what the responses of what was going on with the absenteeism based on the team of the attendance team who makes the phone calls when kids aren't in school, and they actually collected data, and we were a little frustrated because we're trying to figure out ways. Dr. Golden wanted us to do a focus group and kind of have this discussion on how do we identify what are the key factors. But the attendance department they did this. They have this data for every call that they've made, for every
How do we know if they've made calls?
Betsy said they're making calls, like that's that team that was hired that works with Betsy.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's disaggregated. I'm sure they can break it off by school, but they make the call like almost immediately, and then like other phone calls are made in addition to the robocall.
So
They're making active phone calls, and they
Okay.
collected data on what the reason was for the child not being in school?
Yeah, that's happening in our building. So
Yeah.
we have Sherry Hawkins, who is from
Oh,
Veterans
she's
Team,
awesome.
who works with us, and she does home visits and she does phone calls
Yeah.
as well. But I don't
But
think
they don't document that in the
It-
attend actions? Because I mean, I make phone calls as well.
No,
And
they
so
don't.
I always document in my attend actions when I'm
No.
making phone calls.
Well, let
they
me,
don't. They use a Google
Yeah.
spreadsheet to document it.
yes, we have a stoplight protocol that we've used since the
Right.
start of the school year. So we assess kids to be in red, yellow, or green.
Agree.
So that's been documented in that document, and then that's been updated every 2 weeks. That document.
So,
in terms of
but
stuff.
how do teachers know? Like, I didn't know someone was making calls, so I'm making calls on top of someone else?
But we want that.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
We still want staff making phone calls and recording that in the time actions, but then we also have this other check that's going on to
Okay.
check. It's kind of like balancing, checks and balances. We also have another check going on where the home visits and all that stuff's happening because we know exactly who those kids are at each grade
Right.
level.
But what I hear Rebecca saying too is if we just pull that data out, so we haven't pulled it out historically for a state visit, so maybe that's something we want to pull out and say this is our percentage of
Yes.
students who are chronically absent that are also homeless or
Right.
also who are waiting for transportation.
Right.
Yeah, that, you know, the local busing that we've been advocating is something that anything you can do to gather the information to prove just how detrimental it is to have kids having to miss school. I mean, it'd be one thing if they got evicted from a house 3 blocks away here and found another place
Right.
2 blocks away. You know, they can walk to school, but with what we have right now, they're doomed to being at the mercy of whatever the central office can do to follow them and get the bus to them. That's also something that would be good to follow up with Daisy Algren from the NSC, because they were hoping to be able to get quicker turnaround of information to the district so that as soon, because they usually hear if one of the houses that they've been involved with is foreclosed on, you know, the morning after the foreclosure, so they could conceivably perhaps speed information to central office faster so that the child maybe misses 2 or 3 days less, which helps the child, helps the school, and but anything you can do to convince, you know, the folks from Albany that they really need to get on changing this busing requirement so that we can have local busing, which really would cost us less ultimately than what we've got now, which is busing kids all over the city.
We should local busing. What do you mean by that?
Pardon?
Local busing. You mean RTS?
No.
No, this would be the school busing. You know, right now they require 1.5 mile bus ride in order to be reimbursed. The city would go broke if they had to pay for the whole shot because they get reimbursed 90% if it's more than 1.5 miles. So parents always find a school that's 1.5 miles away
Right.
so that their child is safe.
Right.
Great point. Thank you.
So any other data we want to pull to look at and examine?
I think, to John's point, I think it would be a good idea to pull the kids who live in the 1.5 miles and are not coming to school. Is it, like you're saying, the busing? So, too cold, I don't want to walk my kid the mile. Or my car broke down, I can't walk, down far. So I wonder, of the kids that are absent constantly, how many of them are walkers in the morning?
Is there any way,
Trying to get me-
you know,
I am, and it's interesting because as I've sat through these conversations and we've talked about the why tool, I'm sorry, it's actually, there's been other reasons and it's not been necessarily denied access for transportation that's caused it. It's ironically enough, it's a lot of it has to do in the cases in terms of the chronic cases that we're dealing with is there's custody things going on between families. So when a child's with one part of the family, the attendance is one way, but when they're with another part of the family, the attendance is affected in another. So it's just us coming together to find out how can we support both sides, so that it's not an issue when they're with one or with the other. So that's been actually something that's surfaced that I've noticed as a common pattern when doing that, which really has not to do with the access to transportation as much as it is who they're living with at the time. From
Yeah. When they did the Cold Can't Wait, or the, what was it?
Some
Can't
kids,
Wait.
yeah.
Can't Wait, that campaign, that was one of the things that came out, was that the assumption was because when it's cold weather, the kids are not coming because of the train, and that is because of transportation, because of this, but there are so many other factors. I'm wondering if Sherry can get the data specifically for 19 school from Betsy around what are they getting for the school in terms of the chronic attendance students, because they have it. We asked for it. They're like, we have it. We just can't share it with you. Because we're doing attendance, because we're Rock the Future. So, you know, we were dealing with the deputy superintendent to work with Ray D. Giammartino. We're waiting for our data agreement to still go through, and we're doing a project specifically around chronic attendance to help the district, and the barrier is being able to get the data.
Right.
So we were going to do a data piece. We have a data person ourselves to look at, and she's pulled out some things that she's able to. But, you know, in the meeting, Betsy had shared, oh, we already have this data. And we're like, can we have it?
I know that.
So she does have it for each school, for the phone calls that are made, for those that are chronically absent. You know, Sherry could easily get it from Betsy.
And John, I believe there's, Betsy just sent an email today,
Mm-hmm.
wondering when the next attendance meeting is, so for
Okay.
Thursday, and it might be a good thing to ask her for.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Anything else you think we should include around this to support us? So I guess my next question is, what team wants to work on this? Because the state visit is going to occur before our next CET. So we're going to need to meet before then, and I'm going to need to have the data to put into a PowerPoint for the state.
Okay, I would say we do have an attendance team, so it makes sense that would be
But
the
what team here is it going to be? Restorative, instructional, community engagement?
I'm on restorative, but I'm also out of the attendance team, so it's kind of, it can be, just fit it with me. Because
So we just put a note in there
yeah.
that the restorative will follow up with that attendance. Thanks. School safety. A pulse check is with the number of incidences to date. So I think that one's also going to be a restorative, but man, you're already collecting that data, right? So every time someone puts one of those notes inside of the box asking for help and support, you can track that. The number of kids that you're seeing in groups, because basically just a move forward was fabulous.
Okay. Yeah, so I could just, Alex and I could just do that again for the December 11th.
That'd be perfect. And I'll send out an email just giving you some advance notice. I'm gonna need it a couple of days before to do, but I want to wait as long as I can so that I can have as much data to date as possible.
We have a couple different places where we have written up about the model, the SIG grant outline, the two frameworks that the Carlas worked on, the math framework and the ELA framework. So just putting that into presentation mode.
I think we have to go back and talk about the expectations. So I think we might need to, well, ILT is gonna be data-wise conference call this time.
We have ILT next week, don't
Yes, but it's getting close. And keep in mind, like, he is gonna wanna see these expectations in place. So,
We have some of it in our elect to work.
I'm sorry,
We have some of the expectations in our elect to work agreement.
so we probably need to pull those out and take those to grade level meetings to ensure staff is understanding what the expectations are. Any other information you think we should have around the model? Should we have data around the success, maybe tracking that third grade cohort?
I also have the research of, like, kind of the why we're doing it.
I think we need to pull things like the decrease in special education referrals, the increase in test scores. Yeah, I think we need to have some data around why it's successful, like the why, and how do we know it's successful, what we're seeing. Anything else you think needs to go into that? And Beth, your team is going to meet in conjunction with ILT.
Yeah.
Math instruction.
So Carl already has all this written up, the key components, so that's kind of done.
And then Carl is also doing extensive work with 5th and 6th grade right now. You can speak to that.
She did do the 6th grade. I know she did the 5th grade already, the pacing, and I think she's doing, she's working on
She's
it.
going to do 7th and 8th in conjunction with Elizabeth,
Yeah.
coach, and then Elizabeth.
But I know
and
5th is done, and I think 6th might
She's
be
starting to
done.
work, yeah.
Okay.
So I think we just need to have a cohesive plan and a course of action there that we can outline, that we're outlining and currently implementing as well. I think we probably need to also look at putting hands on deck for those grades. So for an example, I'm taking math groups Monday, Tuesdays.
You are?
And I started last week. And I'm taking 3 students, combination of Zern and word problems, depending on what they're working on. So I think we might need to start looking at available adults and being proactive and making those groups smaller
That's awesome.
at any moment we can.
I think that definitely needs to be put in there.
Say that again. What needs to be put in there? One more time.
The fact that, you know, we have outside people, kind of like outside the classroom, pulling kids.
Science. So something else that we're doing that all the receivership schools are honestly struggling with is showing evidence that we have a concrete plan toward our science indicators, because we don't have CFAs for science.
Right.
We talked about using NWEA, but we haven't gotten that up and going. So what Susan Ladd from 28 suggested to us all is that on the 6th, we send our science person over to her school and they sit together and come up with a pacing and some ways to progress monitor science so that we're all on the same page.
On that half day.
On that half day. So Sean Hyrix has agreed to go over on that half day and work with the other 4th grade teachers from the receivership schools in hopes that we come out with a document that we can all utilize to push science forward.
What about middle school, 8th grade?
8th grade, I wasn't going to send anyone over for 8th grade because it's only the one
They don't have a
person.
28, they don't have a
And
8th grade.
I'm going to say that too, not all of the receivership schools are K-8. So I think there's only 2 of us, Susan and 28 and us. I think everyone else is K-6.
So you don't think so for 8, what's the, that's why I want to be putting notes for that. So 8th will be, what's going to be the way that we,
She's going to keep doing what she normally does, just, and actually, I mean, I'm really banking on the fact that we're not given the regents this year, so the science teacher can focus only on 8th grade science, where she hasn't been able to do that in the past. So I think that's a strategy within itself, is that the only curriculum she's teaching is that 8th grade curriculum. You're getting it the whole year instead of some are getting 8th grade, some are getting living, some are getting both. All right, that's that. Does anyone else want to team up? Because it seems like there's nothing for community engagement team this time. So I'll definitely work with Beth's team on the instructional. So I'll do both. I'll go between Beth's and John's teams. Anyone else interested in being invited to the meetings to work on either one of those teams in preparation for the next visit?
Already on the instruction team.
Okay. And actually, John sent me some emails about minutes because I haven't been great with doing minutes. So what I decided to do is I'll take the minutes from the meeting, attach it to this PowerPoint, and then send the actual PowerPoint that goes along with the meeting date. And then that way, everyone will have minutes.
Great.
All right.
Okay.
Anything else for the good of the order?
good.
15 minutes to spare.
Hey.